Hello, my name is Nicholas Kalitzadonakis. I am President and Chief Operating Officer of Foresight Healthcare, and I am very excited to talk about our project that was funded by University of Pennsylvania, and especially the Penn AI Tech program. A little bit about Foresight Healthcare first. Foresight is a university spinoff. It's headquartered in St. Louis, Missouri, and it develops advanced ambient sensor technologies and AI automation solutions for preventive care of aging adults. So a little bit about our project that we are just starting. We want to use continuous gait and mobility data from aging adults and AI and machine learning analytics to evaluate whether we can develop digital diagnostics for identifying the onset of Alzheimer's and related dementias. And so in this context, we want to test a couple of different hypotheses. The first hypothesis is that gait and mobility related predictive biomarkers actually do exist for Alzheimer's and related dementias. And gait related disturbances have been reported for Alzheimer's in the literature for some time. So the first hypothesis is that those sorts of disturbances are structural, and so therefore predictive biomarkers might actually exist for the identification of the disease. The second hypothesis that we want to test in essence jointly is that if in fact such biomarkers do exist, that we can extract them, we can identify them by using continuous gait data and mobility data from two different populations. Populations of aging adults in memory care units that have definitive diagnosis of the disease, and populations of aging adults from assisted living communities where they do not have that sort of diagnosis. So with this in mind, a little bit about what the technology of the company looks like, where the data is generated, and how we are going to go about using that data to evaluate those hypotheses. So you can think of the platform of the company in sort of two different sets, two different buckets. On one side, the one bucket is advanced ambient sensors. Those are sensors that are embedded in living environments. There are depth sensors in a living room, or a thermal sensor in a bathroom, or a bed sensor under the mattress of a bed. And they generate gait and activity and vitals and sleep data on an ongoing basis. And those are all passive sensors. They are non-contact sensors. They're privacy protecting sensors. So nothing to wear, nothing to charge. The data is generated as the resident goes about their life. On the other side is the AI automation routines, where they're basically autonomous systems that receive the data from the sensors and they analyze them. They use predictive models to make predictions about the health and wellness of the individual. And if there is something out of the ordinary to report, they will basically send predictive alerts to caregivers in order to take a closer look at the resident. So that's sort of the environment of the technology that the company develops, and that sort of continuous data that is being generated is also going to be used for the project. More specifically, the core sensor in this particular case for this particular project is the depth sensor. You can see the depth sensor of the Foresight, the DS6, And you can see here how it is typically installed in a room. It's up in the corner in the ceiling. And the sensor is not a camera. It is a depth sensor. It creates a 3D map of the room. And so an individual will appear as a 3D silhouette. So there's no facial recognition. There are no anatomical details. Obviously, the sensor is HIPAA compliant. And the AI automations are of different kinds. So, as an example, AI might actually identify a fall, right? And so, if the individual falls, then the AI automatically will send an alert to the caregiver to say, hey, this individual has fallen. Importantly for this project, the one type of automation is the fall risk assessment that uses different gait and mobility data. And this sort of data analysis is ongoing 24/7, right? Every time the individual takes 5 steps or more, the sensor captures data of gait and mobility, and that data is constantly analyzed. So it produces a estimated tag score, walking speed, stride length, stride time, and so on and so forth. And all of this data is constantly being analyzed, and fall risk is assessed. It's that kind of data that we're going to use for this particular project in order to basically evaluate whether we can come up with models that can estimate the risk of onset of Alzheimer's and related dementias. So for the particular project, we are going to use two different analytical approaches. The first is preliminary and sort of for information so that we can understand how gait and mobility disturbances might be structurally related to the disease, right? And so we have data identified for this particular project for about 4,000 individuals. And the gait data and mobility data is anything from 3 months to 78 months long for each one of these individuals. And 2/3 of the individuals come from adults in assisted living units, and 1/3 from memory care units. So 1/3 of the individuals have definitive diagnosis of Alzheimer's and related dementias, and 2/3 do not, right? And so we will analyze different gait biomarkers, stride length, stride time, walking speed, and so on, in different temporal units, day data, daily data, weekly data, monthly data, different aggregations. And obviously the sort of data statistical models that we are going to use are sort of unbalanced panel models for this type of analysis. The core of the analysis, however, is the AI machine learning analysis, where we are going to be using the visual data, the standardized clips of those individual walks. We have literally millions of them for this particular data set. And we're going to use a variety of different models, 1D, 2D, 3D, convolutional neural networks, other models potentially, in order to analyze the visual data of the walks. And so we anticipate the analysis to be a whole lot more complex, where such things as both static and temporal elements, like posture, for example, or posture changes over time, gait, rhythm, and cadence, step-to-step of variability, hesitation, and so on and so forth, can be all analyzed at the same time with the objective to be able to associate this sort of mobility and gait information with the possibility of onset of Alzheimer's and related dementias. So the endpoints that we have for the particular models set in front of us is 90% correct prediction of residents in memory care units and 80% correct prediction for assisted living residents, allowing for the possibility that some of those individuals may actually have Alzheimer's and related dementias, but they have not been diagnosed. So we feel comfortable that if those endpoints actually are met by our models, digital diagnostics would be actually effective and possible from this type of data. So if all of this goes as planned and the models are successful, how we would be in essence implementing these models is using the sort of continuous data that we generate currently from these populations. And much like we are assessing fall risk, we can assess the risk of onset of Alzheimer's and related dementias. So that's the basic idea. We hope that the project is going to be successful and we will have exciting results to report when the project is over. And certainly, if you have any questions, please reach out at the email that you can see on the screen. Thank you very much, and thank you to Penn AI Tech for the funding. We're excited to get started.